Howie Klein is standing by. He is the founder and treasurer of the Blue America PAC, which raises money for progressive candidates here in New York City. We're going to meet somebody who's running for New York's 3rd congressional district, I believe. Is that correct, Howie?
Unfortunately, you were breaking up while you were speaking, so I couldn't hear all your words.
Oh.
I don't know what you're asking is correct. Are you asking me about where Melanie is from?
Is it the 3rd congressional district here in New York?
Right. So so the district is the North Shore of Long Island, and it goes from Suffolk County right through Nassau and into Queens. Now, the district is being redrawn right now, so no one is positive, but it's likely that it's going to move further into Queens and maybe less into Suffolk. But it's people think of it as the North Shore of Long Island, and even though there's a lot of people in Queens, a lot of people in Suffolk, a lot of people think it's a Nassau County district, which is not. Tom Suozzi is the current congressman, a very conservative Democrat, and he's going to run for governor, so he's not running for the seat again. So it makes it an open seat. And Melanie, who's going to be our guest now, is currently the front runner in that race.
Great.
So we actually have a progressive front runner, which is extremely rare.
Great.
And is Melanie with us?
She's with us. Yes, she is. And we're going to raise money for her today.
I hope so.
We're going to raise a lot of money for Melanie.
Good. Let's do it.
Yes.
And I think the best way to do it is for Melanie to come on and tell us a little bit about herself and why she's running.
And the best way, while she's talking, she needs to unmute herself. Go to, how do you pronounce D'Arrigo? Is that
D'Arrigo.
How it's pronounced?
Yeah, D'Arrigo2022.com.
D'Arrigo2022.com, DARRIGO 2022.com, and give her money. If you heard the first 90 minutes of my show, this is what you need to do. You need to give her money. Fighting for the families of Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk. Thank you, future Congresswoman Melanie D'Arrigo. Go ahead, Howie.
Hey, Melanie, how you doing?
Hey, Howie, how's it going? Hi, David. Thanks for having me here tonight.
Yes, well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. And, we are eager to make sure that our listeners get a feel for who you are and what's going to be the difference between you and just another person who's trying to say, hey, vote for me, vote for me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's in store for the families in the 3rd district if they elect you?
Yeah, well, again, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Melanie D'Arrigo. I am running for Congress in New York's 3rd district. I spent my career as an allied health professional, which means I built health improvement strategies for families, for patients, and later organizations to produce better health outcomes. So healthcare is very important to me. I'm also a nonprofit co-founder and a community organizer and a mom of 3. I've been organizing for issues like universal health care, climate action, social justice issues, common sense gun safety legislation, repro rights, and I've made getting corporate money out of politics a central issue of my campaign. We need to look no further than the newspaper or the TV to realize the outsized influence of corporate money in our political system and how it's always working against us. So I'm a grassroots funded candidate. We've been doing really well organizing in the district. For the listeners, I did run for this seat last cycle. We got a little under 30% of the vote for a first-time candidate. That's actually exceptional. So we're back to finish what we started, to finish the job and start putting people first and fighting for our families.
Okay, and last time you ran, you were running against an incumbent. This time you're running for an open seat. And this time people have heard your name and know who you are. Last time they didn't.
Right. Right. And I think, look, in the last election, we were able to build what I think is a pretty impressive coalition of support. And I think this time, relaunching the campaign, it has given us this advantage because when we relaunched, all that support came back and we've been able to really build on that support. So at this point in the race, I have 15 endorsements and we're, getting more endorsements, it seems like every single week, which is wonderful. I'm actually the first candidate of the cycle to be endorsed by brand new Congress, by excuse me. I don't know why I just had a little bit of a blank out there. By the National Organization for Women, Moms in Office, Progressive Women of New York, the New York Progressive Action Network, and a slew of others. I was recently endorsed by National, Indivisible, and Blue America. So we're very excited, and we're just going to keep on building until we not only win in June, but win in November. And then we're going to keep on fighting and make sure that we can pass progressive policies that help all of us.
Well, speaking of progressive policies that help all of us, one question that I've asked some candidates in the past that people like, and I've gotten a lot of feedback saying, "Oh, that's a good question. Ask other people that." So I'm going to ask you now. Okay. Not long ago, there was a contentious battle over strategy in Congress about how to hold the line or not hold the line, and passing Joe Manchin's hard transportation bill or hold it up until he agreed to pass the social infrastructure bill. Now, I know from the stuff I've heard from you that you're a big fan of the social infrastructure bill and the stuff that's in that bill. But in terms of strategy, there were only 6 Democrats who voted against going forward. Would you have been one of those 6? Do you know? Do you have any inkling of that?
I would have been, and I had been saying as much for months and months. I think that obviously, listen, Donald Trump traumatized a lot of Americans, and I think that there was this craving to return to some type of normalcy. And I think, some of what we're combating right now is trying to figure out, well, wait, what was normal? Because Donald Trump was against voting rights, but yet we can't seem to pass any voting rights. Donald Trump didn't want to pass paid leave, but we can't seem to pass paid leave now, right? So I think we're struggling with what that looks like. But I think for many Democrats in particular, they put all their faith and fought and did what they could. They wrote postcards. Some knocked doors, some made a lot of phone calls. They donated money to make sure that we won the House, we won the Senate, and we won the White House. And here we are, and we're not able to pass anything. I have to say, and as easy as it is to Monday morning quarterback, I think that the 6 were absolutely right to hold the line. And of course, it's easy to say that now that we've seen Joe Manchin go back on his word, which is, what I think most of us who are paying attention thought would happen.
Right. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that your district and AOC's district share a common border in Queens.
Yes, we have a little intersecting point as it stands today. We'll see if that changes or shifts, but either way, we're very, geographically quite close.
Right. And she was one of the 6, of course, who refused to vote for the hard infrastructure bill. Can I ask you
a question, Howie?
Sure. Oh.
So, and Melanie, I made the mistake of not having AOC on the show when she was a candidate. Howie, looking at this race, Melanie has a very good chance of winning, doesn't she?
Yes, like I said, when I look at the race, I see that Melanie is a front runner, is the front runner in the race, both in the primary and in the general election.
I from what I read over the weekend, it looked like, wow, she's a year from now. Go ahead, please.
So that just means you have to have me back once I win, David.
Yeah, well, we'll see if you want to come back.
Oh, I
Usually
make
when
a
they're
point.
elected.
No, I recognize that it's all the supporters along the way. Winning an election is never about a single candidate, right? It's always about the entirety of all the supporters. It's every phone call, it's every door knock, it's every donation, it's every interaction where we can reach out to voters, right? It's all of us that get us there. It's never about one single person, and I never ever forget that, because I think it's just very important for the movement, at least for a sustainable movement, right?
All right, go ahead, Howie.
You said you were going to ask me a question, but I didn't.
Oh no, the question was: this is somebody who is going to Congress. There's no question.
Yes. We certainly hope so. Now, that doesn't mean that people should slack off. She's going to go to Congress if she keeps getting the kind of support that she needs to win this election. So, that's not just donating. Donating is very important, but she needs volunteers as well. She needs people to do everything that makes a campaign tick. And Melanie, is there a volunteer page on your website?
Yes, absolutely. If you go to the regular homepage, there's a little menu bar. So D'Arrigo 2022, DARRIGO 2022.com, and you can sign up to volunteer.
Great. And what would someone volunteering do? I mean, like, take someone who lives in the district first. Tell us what you would want them to do, and then tell us what people from around the country would do if they were to volunteer.
Right. So in district, obviously Omicron is throwing a little bit of a wrench in our plans, but hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll be out knocking on doors, talking to voters. That's very, very important. Hosting events, whether it's via Zoom, and actually that's something you can do from anywhere in the country. But in district, we can certainly do it in home or in a backyard. In terms of, broader volunteers, there's always a job. I always tell everyone, if you want to get involved in the campaign, I promise I have a job for you, because we can always use more folks, and it can manifest in a variety of ways. Folks can help out in particular aspects, whether it's with data work, it's potentially with comms, it's writing letters to the editor. It could be phone banking volunteers. It could be helping outreach to voters over the phone. There's always jobs to do. So it's sort of what we like to do on the campaign. Like, we certainly have needs, but we also, for our folks who really want to volunteer and become ongoing volunteers, we like to find out what they like to do, and then we'll sort of place them in an area of the campaign where they can get something out of it, and we're getting something out of it as well.
Great. I know that Biden won your district, right? He beat Trump there?
Mm-hmm. Yes. By
like 10 points or something?
It was a little less, but here's the thing about this district, right? I think there was, it can be tumultuous, but mostly what we found, and I've knocked, over the years, tens of thousands of doors in this district, our voters are craving a representative or leadership that is going to fight for them and prioritize their needs. And we just really haven't had a strong representative to do that. And of course, with the presidential election, I think there was a bit of burnout. But yeah, I mean, definitely it's a blue district. It's been a blue district for over 20 years. And, we're waiting for redistricting at the moment. We do anticipate it likely getting bluer, but, regardless if it gets bluer or not, we feel really confident about where we are and the work that we've done already at this point. And we know we're about to really enter that, home stretch of the primary now, where it's just, nonstop voter outreach. We're feeling very good about it.
So I've lived in both Nassau and Suffolk County. Suffolk County when I was in college, but I lived there for 4 years. And I was younger when I lived in Nassau County. But I don't know the people who I know some, but I don't know the people the way you know them who do live in your district now. And I want to ask you, when something is brought up that's like a contentious issue, like, I don't know, take Medicare for all. What kind of response do you get from that? Do people say, yes, we really need that? Or do they say, yeah, it's too expensive, leave me alone?
Well, I think one thing that we have done really well and consistently as a campaign, and this is both in the 2020 cycle and now in the 2022 cycle, is that we have had a very strong voter education model. We have always worked to bring, supporters and voters in as opposed to ostracizing them, right? Just because we think one way and they think another. Let's have a real conversation and let's meet them where they're at. And so, yeah, I think, if you're not in the room with someone and someone hears a snippet from the news that tells them that they should think one way about something like, for example, Medicare for all, and I think this has really shifted. The first time I started running, it was pre-pandemic, and I think it was a little bit harder on an issue like Medicare for all. But I'll tell you, we have had so much success. And what I have done is not walk in with the buzzwords, right? So the Medicare for all, that phrase can be triggering for folks. I don't know why, but it can be. And so I would go into a room and I would say, let's talk about healthcare. What if we had a system where there were no deductibles and there were no copays, and it included long-term care and hearing aids and dental? What if we had a system like that? And then I would talk about it and I would go into depth, and then I would get everyone in the room shaking their head like, yeah, well, that sounds great. And then I would tell them, well, we actually do have a proposed piece of legislation that would do just that. And then I would say, it's Medicare for all. And you would see almost, the total shock. And that's how we would bring folks in, because we would sort of disarm any preconceived notions they had about a particular policy. And we did this across the board for a variety of policies. And then we'd have folks come and ask us questions. And believe it or not, over the course of the years, we've had supporters who said, I support you because I like what you're doing, but I don't support Medicare for all. And then over time, after having several conversations with me and with the campaign, they changed their mind because all their questions were answered. And we create this safe environment to allow people to learn without ostracizing them. And I'll tell you, it's a very successfyou model.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to do campaigning instead of just sitting on the phone calling donors all the time. But do you, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, are most of the people who live in your district homeowners?
Yes, it's a very high home ownership district, but we do have a lot of renters as well, but it is primarily homeowners.
And the reason I'm asking that is because homeowners always seem to be a little bit more adverse to programs that they fear will make their taxes go up.
Yeah, well, I think, listen, nobody wants to pay more taxes, right? If we did a survey, I don't think there's a person, well, there are a few now there are, but maybe 10 years ago, they would say, no, I don't want to pay taxes. But I go back to, if you can educate a voter base and tell them exactly where their money is going. And look, there are proposed models for how we pay for Medicare for all. There's tons of studies now at this point that would show that not only would we save $450 billion a year, we'd save 68,000 lives a year. And I think when we talk to folks like that and show them, well, look, you pay a deductible every month. And I think we tend to not remember our deductible that we're paying because it comes out of our paycheck. So we don't even think about it as an actual cost, right? But it is. And I think once we're able to educate folks on that and show them exactly how it works, it makes a lot of sense because frankly, universal healthcare, Medicare for all is not a radical proposition. In my opinion, it is the most pragmatic policy. It's fiscally and morally responsible. And frankly, if we were a corporation and someone pitched this idea and said, hey, we're going to save lives and we're going to save all this money, it would be heralded as a huge success, right? So I think our biggest challenge is really just trying to break through the misinformation and the noise.
Right. And a lot of people get their information from Fox News, right? Large numbers of people. Is that the case in your district? Is that where are people getting their information from Fox?
I don't know too many Democrats these days that's getting their information from that particular source. But certainly there are a fair amount of Republicans that are, and that I think is unfortunate. I think Nielsen ratings doesn't even classify Fox News as a news source. It's classified as entertainment, and I wish more folks knew that.
I didn't know that either. That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, Howie, we've knocked doors, and I think I may have mentioned this to you, and this is not uncommon. When we're out in the field knocking doors, it's fairly common for someone to answer the door, not be the person you're looking for, it's their spouse, and they're a Republican. And when we have conversations and you're meeting them where well, tell me about your issues. Well, I wouldn't vote for a Democrat. Okay, well, what do you care about? And you start to have a real substantive conversation. We've flipped voters at the door. We've had Republicans change their registration to support us. And I think it's because most people truly want the same things. We want good schools. We want a livable planet. We want good health care. We want jobs, right? I think there's a lot more in common than we realize. And right now, media is very divisive, and it's really tearing us apart. But I think it's really that work, and it's hard because it's grinding work to be out there every day knocking those doors, but it works.
Do you mind if I'd like to ask you a question? The incumbent who's running for governors, how do you pronounce it?
Swazi.
Has he endorsed you?
No,
he's very, very conservative. Not going to endorse anybody.
So I go to capitaltrades.com and I keep track of Democratic congressmen and Republicans, but it's mostly Democratic Congress people who are trading on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Should he be trading close to $7 million? He made 155 trades in 2021, totaling $6,500,000 going in and out of.
A question that's more of a general question than just about Swazi. He's one of many. I mean, why don't we make it about Pelosi, who's trading hundreds of millions of dollars between her and her husband? I don't know if I'm right about that, hundreds of millions, but many millions of dollars in on the stock market. So the question that I think you want to ask, David, is should members of Congress be trading on the stock market? Especially if they're in committees or even an ability to vote on the floor of the House that has some influence on the value of those stocks. Is that something that you've thought about at all, Melanie?
Absolutely. The incumbent is currently on the House Ways and Means Committee, and quite literally is writing tax laws for the corporations that fund him. And there's something fundamentally flawed about that. And I certainly don't want to make this conversation about him. He's no longer my opponent, but he and several other congressional representatives were just found in violation of the Stock Act for not reporting their trades. And I think that is, I don't know how that happens at that level, but clearly it has been happening. So that's being investigated. It's my personal opinion that I don't believe that congressional members should be trading. Certainly they're allowed to have an account, but put it in a blind trust and let someone do it. But I do not think with the information that they're receiving, they should be allowed to continue in this manner. And you look at Congress and look what happens, right? You look at my incumbent, this is his third cycle, and you've seen his wealth balloon 3 or 4 times in the amount of time he's been in Congress. Now, I'm not saying, for sure that is what he's done, but it's just, I don't think that they're, I don't think we should be doing that. I don't think we should be trading while we're getting all of this information, and certainly writing laws that could potentially benefit the companies that we're trading or buying stocks in.
Should we know what candidates are worth? And in the Democratic Party, should it be a detriment if they're worth too much?
It's a good question. I think when we look at Congress, and particularly a couple of cycles ago, it's gotten a little bit better, but when you look at Congress, there are a few characteristics that stick out, right? It's mostly old white men with nice ties, right? Who have tremendous wealth. And I do think that that's a perspective that sure deserves a seat at the table, but it definitely does not deserve all the seats at the table, right? So we certainly need a more diverse Congress. And I think we have seen, I mean, look at the world that we live in. We have seen what a Congress looks like when they legislate for those at the very, very top. And you know, we see it over and over and over again. And I think it's why we are unable to pass this reconciliation bill. There's no real substantive reason why Joe Manchin would vote against this reconciliation bill. It's not about helping the people of West Virginia who rank nearly at the bottom of nearly every list in this country with healthcare, education, economic development, all of it, right? But he's a coal baron and it goes against his personal interest, right? So I do think that there has to be some sort of checks and balance system. Now, again, I'm not saying that there should be no wealthy people in Congress. There should be a mix. It should be diverse. We're a diverse country. Party,
this is something I feel very passionate about because character does count, and we judge a person's character in politics on whether or not they cheat on their wives. That seems to be what brings Democrats down. Shouldn't their character be measured by their net worth? Wouldn't voters be better informed? I'm being serious, Howie. Wouldn't we do?
Well, you're being very, very general as well. I mean, I agree with you. You know, most rich people that I've come in contact with tend to be very greedy. The richer they are, the greedier they are. But it's about all of them aren't like that. I mean, we certainly wouldn't have had FDR as president if you had the David Feldman rule in place.
Well, I think that's true. If I could just real quick, he
was poor. He had to borrow money from his mother, Sarah. He did not have money. He lived in his mother. I'm serious. He was personally impoverished. Go ahead.
I live in one of the wealthiest congressional districts in the country. And what I can tell you is that, yeah, look, I don't think that there's one key factor that influences who you are as a person. In fact, one of the election districts in 2020, very close to where I live, there's a wealthy area. And I had done some events and I spoke to folks and I spoke to them about a Green New Deal and Medicare for all and very progressive, policy. And I ended up winning that election district. And these are very, very wealthy people, wealth beyond what I could imagine. And so I think it's important not to just judge, based on that one factor. But I think to your point, in Congress, there has to be a checks and balance system when their wealth is growing tremendously.
And we should pay attention to that.
Absolutely.
We should know what our representatives, what they're worth when they take office and what they're worth as they're about to leave office. Go ahead, Howie.
You're right. And that's why those records are publicly available.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's I think it can be difficult to sleuth through, right? I mean, all the information is there, but I don't think the process is very clear to the average constituent how one would, uncover what their congressional representative is worth and how their wealth grew and what did they invest in, right? And I think that can be problematic. And I think we're seeing that, with Joe Manchin right now.
You're right. Congress writes those rules, and they write them for their own benefit. So, even when you come to the definition of bribery, they take their own behavior and they write around that. So that what they do isn't part of bribery, whereas everybody who looks at what they do knows exactly what it is. It's bribery.
Mm-hmm. It may be legal, but that does not mean it's ethical.
We're almost out of time. I have 3 questions that I ask all the candidates.
Okay.
Okay. Did the Taliban attack us on 9/11?
No.
Does Medicare for all mean putting health insurance companies out of business? Can we have Medicare for all and still have health insurance companies?
No.
Hey, forget it. You got my vote. Go to. That's it.
Do you live in the district?
No, but I'm moving there. Those are, I think, the two most difficult questions for a politician to answer, and most don't answer it that quickly.
Give you a much more difficult one, especially in a district like Melanie's. But there's no time to go into the whole situation in Israel, so we'll have to do this another time.
Go to D'Arrigo2022.com, DARRIGO 2022.com. Give her money. She's going to Congress. So give her money, DARRIGO 2022.com. Melanie's going to win. She's endorsed by Howie Klein. That's all you need to know. She's endorsed by Howie. Give her money. Do you take corporate donations?
No.
Are you a multimillionaire?
No. Things would be a lot easier if I was, but no.
Okay.
The mother of three, but not a multimillionaire. So a millionaire in a different kind of way.
That is true. I get a million kisses.
You're going to win.
I believe so. We're very excited. We have to continue to grow the Progressive Caucus. We need to get folks who are fighting for us in office. It's the only way we're going to save our democracy. It's the only way we're going to create a future for us, our children, and our grandchildren.
Right. And well said. Howie, you get the last word. Thank you for Melanie.
Last word is just, I want to just ask Melanie if she'll come back to celebrate with us when she wins the primary.
Let's do it.
The election is November 8th. When is the New York primary?
June 28th.
June 28th. You're going to win. I mean, I've gone over, you can win this thing.
We can win this thing. We absolutely can win this thing. We're going to continue to work hard. So thank you to everyone who listened to me tonight. And if you can support us however you can, whether it's a donation or you can volunteer, it would really go a long way with a campaign like ours. I'm a grassroots candidate, and it's really about the people. So come on and join us and build with us.
Thank you. Go
Thank
to
you so much.
DARRIGO 2022.com. Give her money. Now, go. Howie Klein endorses her. That's all you need to know. Thank you, Melanie. Please come back. Thank you, Howie.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'll see you next.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Mel.
Follow Howie on Twitter